Hello. So I'm going to get my sourdough starter revived, I guess is the word for it, because that's what I can remember right now. So I'm going to feed it tonight, and then I'm going to put it in my proofer, which is down there, because I keep my house kind of cold because it's expensive to heat with oil. So I normally keep my house on about 64 degrees. So I found out when I started doing sourdough bread that wasn't really too conducive to make sourdough. It makes it hard for it to bubble up and activate. So I'm going to feed my sourdough starter. I always do that when I get home on Fridays. So I put 113 grams of my old starter and 113 grams of flour. This is whole wheat flour. And then I'm going to add 113 grams of water. And then I just mix all that together and put it in the proofer, and tomorrow morning it'll be all ready for me to use. So I will be right back with the water. So here's my water, and I use warm water. And I will just mix this in a few minutes. So I make 2 batches, because I have really enough to make 3, but I only make 2. So I'm going to zero this out. I need 113 grams of starter again. So put the extra on the lid that I don't need right now. And then 113 grams of flour. And it's better to weigh everything out. It's more accurate. And then 113 grams of water. I will find a sourdough starter recipe and put that in the comment section so you can start your own sourdough starter. A friend of mine was gracious and gave me some of hers, so this sourdough starter is over 5 years old. So it's nice and sour, and it has a really, really good taste. You can use all-purpose flour. Every once in a while, instead of using whole wheat flour, I will use all-purpose flour. You can also use, but I don't do that all the time. Wheat feeds it really well and gets it really active if you need to do that. You can also use rye flour. I'm not a big fan of rye bread, so I've not done that, but I'm not sure how much of a rye flavor it gives it. But if that is your thing, just play around with it and see. If you use it one time and you don't really like it, you can switch back to whole wheat. You can add all-purpose, whichever one that you want. So I'm getting this together. I've got brats on the grill, and I've got French fries in the air fryer. Steve and the boys will be here in a few minutes, and Steve and I are going to play at my high school. They're putting on Mamma Mia, so we're going to go see that tonight, and I'm super excited. So I'm just trying to throw this stuff together so it's ready to go in the morning, and I will continue this video in the morning when I actually make sourdough bread. It's a several-day process. You're not necessarily active for several days, but it has to rise for a while, and I will explain more of that later on. But you can see my sourdough bread here, and I've got sourdough bagels in this container. So it feeds my family. I know what's in it. If you don't plan on using it within a certain amount of time, I suggest freezing it because it will start to mold within about a week. So anyway, so this is going to be my sourdough starter. This you can put in your composter. I'm just throwing it away for today, or you can, a friend of mine said that I actually got this sourdough starter from. She says you can make crackers out of it. I've not done that at this point. You could use it to make another batch and gift it to a friend. So this is just going in my proofer down here. This keeps it, I have it set on 75 degrees. It folds down when I don't use it. They can be kind of pricey, but I found mine on, I want to say eBay. So I didn't pay full price for it. I think it's about $200 full price. I did not even probably pay half of that. I can't remember exactly how much, but I got a really good deal. And it has made my sourdough baking so much better because it's at a higher temperature than I keep my house. So I will be back tomorrow. You have a good evening. Okay, so it's about 7:30 in the morning. So I'm going to start my bread, my bagels, and my pretzels. So remember we made the starter yesterday. We fed it to make it active so you see how bubbly and how much it grew. So that's what you're looking for, which is why I love my proofer. So I'm going to zero out my bowl and I'm going to put in 100 grams of starter. So there we go, 100 grams of starter. And then I'm going to add 375 grams of warm water. And I'm just watching the scale. I start going slower the closer I get. I'm at almost 450. I may have to add more, I believe I'm going to. Just a little bit. So, a little bit over, but that's okay. And I'm going to stir this until it dissolves. I'm going to turn my scale off because it will probably turn off anyway. And then we'll re-zero it when it becomes time. And I take my rings off when I'm working with the bread because I don't want to get flour and stuff in between the prawns and this and that. So the starter is dissolved in the water. So now I'm going to turn my scale back on and zero it again. And I need 500 grams of bread flour. So I'm just going to put it right in the bowl. And this is a cup that my son made at school, like when he was in 2nd grade in 2011, I guess is what it says on the back. So it makes me smile when I see it because he's much older now. He's 18, so he's officially an adult, and he actually does pretty good. So I'm very proud of him and who he's becoming. It's kind of cool to see your kids grow up in a way, sad at the same time, but it's kind of nice to see where your influence is and what they take from you. So I have 500 grams of bread flour, and then I need 9 to 12 grams of salt. So this is just fine sea salt. I'm going to need to get some more soon. So anywhere between 9 and 12, it doesn't matter. There we go. So we are done with this for now. So what I'm going to do I really was wanting it, and I was thinking it would make things easier, and it really does. You could use your KitchenAid mixer. I used to use that especially for, you don't need it so much for this, but for my bagels I was using it, but it was just straining the motor to the point that I did not want to burn up my motor in my KitchenAid, so I just do it all by hand now. And it's not that hard, it doesn't take that long, and I will show you in the pretzel segment, or not pretzel segment, well that one too, and my bagel segment especially. I get one of my stools and I get up on the stool to help me knead my bread and it, or dough, and it makes it a lot easier. So here's that, and I just put it in my measuring cup, and then I just go around with my hands and put this like this. Now once I do this, it's going to go in the proofer, and after 30 minutes I'm going to stretch and fold it, and I'm going to do that every 30 minutes for about 3 or 4 times total, and then it will sit and rest in the proofer for 6 to 8 hours, and then I will take it out and get it ready to sit in the fridge for like 12 to 24. So this is sticky, so you can see, and I'm going to cover it with a towel. I have some of those reusable paper towels that I bought on Etsy. So I'm going to wet it and put it on top of here and put it in my proofer for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to start making the others. Okay, so my sourdough bread dough has risen, and you can see, hopefully, the bubbles that have been forming. So it is ready to proof in the fridge now for 12 to 24 hours. So I have, I think these, they call it a batten bowl. So I have one of those, and I have my cotton towel, and something I learned a long time ago, if you take a half pint mason jar and take a nail and put holes all in the lids, or a knife, whatever, you have a great shaker for your flour. So I use this all the time. So the instructions online for this part tells me to like fold this in, and then I'm supposed to put it on like a plate and all of that stuff, and then let it sit for a few more minutes and then put it in here. I don't really understand the point of that. I did that for a while, but now I just do this. And you're supposed to put the seam side up, which is fine. I just flip it over, and it coaches, it comes out. And then I just put it in here. And I didn't put it seam side up, but it's okay. You can always just kind of fold it a little bit in here. And I'll leave it for a few minutes. And I'm going to cover it up, and then it will go in the refrigerator, and tomorrow morning when I wake up and start making breakfast, I will pull this out, and then I will start baking this, and then after this bakes for 30 minutes at 450 degrees, I will put my bagels in. So super easy. Again, very time consuming, so you have to kind of like play with the hours, the time, and everything to see what works for you and your schedule. But so far, this is what's been working best for mine. So I will come back tomorrow and show you the rest of what we do. Happy Sunday morning. So I got my sourdough bread dough out of the refrigerator. Sorry, I'm still trying to wake up. I've got my bagels over here on the stove. So I get my sourdough on first, because I have to preheat the oven, which my Dutch oven is in there, at 550, and then I'll take this out and dump it onto here, and then I lower the temperature. Once it gets heated up to 550, I drop it down to 450, and I bake this for 30 minutes. Once this bakes for 30 minutes, I take it out, I take the lid off the Dutch oven, I drop the temperature down to 400, and I bake it for another 10 or so minutes. At 400 is what I bake the bagels. So at that point, the bagels will go in the oven. So once I get this in the oven, once it preheats to 550 and I lower it down to 450, I start working on my bagels. And that's what's working for me. I'm gonna grab a plate. That way it's not dumping and compacting. I just thought of that. So I will be right back with a plate to work on this part. So I have my plate. So I'm just gonna do it like this. And take this off. So as you can see, well, maybe, here's my bread. So I have to score it. I bought a lame, I think is what they call it, L-A-M-E. I had never heard of it, but I've been using a knife, but they say this works better due to the, I'm going to lower my camera a little bit, due to the, it's just super, super sharp. It's basically like a super thin razor blade. I actually cut myself a little bit when I was putting this on. You squeeze the two, the top and the bottom, but my finger like moved over a little bit. So I just try to make a design. I don't know why I do, because half the time it doesn't come out, but I don't know. I like this little wheat design. I just make little horizontal slashes and then I make a vertical slash. So I don't know. I pretend like I'm trying to make it pretty. Half the time when it comes out, you can't tell what I was trying to make, but that's okay. Just to have fun. So once the oven preheats, I will put this in my Dutch oven. I will put the lid back on. It will go in there for 30 minutes, and then I will show you what it looks like after 30 minutes, and it stays in there another 10 to 15 minutes once I lower the temperature down to 400, and you can bake it on the rack at that point. I don't normally, and I will show you what it looks like after that point. Okay, so my oven just beeped saying that it was ready. It's at 550. Now the one thing that I've done a time or two is I forgot to turn the temperature back down. So I just kind of had to adjust the times a little bit mentally. So especially if I have a lot on my mind. So the parchment paper, parchment paper I just grabbed like this. And I just set it in my Dutch oven. And I try to straighten it out a little. Then I put the lid back on. I'm going to go ahead and drop the temperature so I don't forget. I drop it preheated to 550. And then I drop the temperature to 450. Which obviously is already heated to 450. And then I'm going to put this in there and bake it for 30 minutes. And then I'm going to start on my bagels. It gets a tablespoon of baking soda and a tablespoon of brown sugar. And I will be back on another video showing all of that. Okay, so I am pulling round one of the sourdough bread out. So it has baked at 450 for 30 minutes with the lid on. So then I'm going to take the lid off and bake it at 400 for another 10 to 15. So you can see what it looks like now. And I'm going to put my bagels in the oven as well. Okay, so my sourdough bread is finished. So I will show you what it looks like. Or it should be finished. So, and I will take it out and show you on the, I put it on a cooling rack. You shouldn't cut into it for about an hour at least. I put it on the cooling rack to cool. So, over here, I'll move you into this a second. So, here we go. So I just got to take the parchment paper off. I'm going to lower you down just a little. Well, I think you'll be fine. So here is my sourdough bread. It will cool. See, the design doesn't matter, but that's okay. And this will probably be, the rest of it will be eaten today. One of my, this is a Pirate's bowl set. Not a pirate, but a Pirate's. And this was their 2.5 quart bowl with lid. And I found that it's just the perfect size for sourdough bread. So the bagels are almost finished, so I will come back when they're done. If you like what you see, subscribe and save.